Spathoglottis is one of the most rewarding orchids to grow. Today we're going to have a look at Spathoglottis, the how, when and why to repot, and we'll just go through basically some of the media that we're going to use and how to mix them all to get a good well-drained mix for your Spathoglottis. And welcome to the Nature Company. If this is the kind of information you're interested in, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, or that notification bell to be notified of all our upcoming videos so you don't miss out on a thing. Spathoglottis are ground orchids and they come from tropical areas of the world. So they like to get a lot of water. They like to be constantly moist throughout the year, but they do like to have good drainage. Their tender little roots will just rot if they're kept way too moist. So we make sure any mix that we put it in has got a very good drainage system. You notice I grow them in fairly large pots. Often people will grow them in pots that are wider than they are deep, but I do like to give mine just that a little bit of extra deep, just to make sure that the media can hold enough moisture during our dry periods. We can see also they have a fairly good solid root system. The root system can fill up these pots completely. That's one of the reasons that we are repotting at the moment. These have been in these pots for approximately 5 years. So Spathoglottis are not the kind of orchid that needs to be potted, repotted every year. You can let them be in their media for good long extended periods of time. So here with these ones, the media's completely run out of nutrition, so our bulbs aren't getting any bigger and we aren't getting those nice long big leaves that we really want so that we can get that magnificent display of flowers. Spathoglottis, especially these newer hybrids, can flower just about the whole year all the way through. That's why we want to make sure that they're kept in a good media with lots of food available for them so that they can just keep growing and keep flowering. They're fairly heavy feeders, just like Cymbidiums. If you look here, it's very much similar to the Cymbidium media that we would use to repot Cymbidiums in. Just here we notice that all the loam that's been used is decomposed and just needed to be replaced. So also we can just pull off any debris from around it to ensure that we've got that good air movement. Another thing about Spathoglottis is they like lots of air movement. They're often used out in landscaping, planting in the gardens, so they do take a lot of sun. You can actually acclimatize them to full sun conditions, but generally just a couple of hours of sun in the morning is generally enough. But if your Spathoglottis isn't flowering, generally the reason that it's not is the food in your media is finished, but more commonly it's the light. They need more light to flower. The one nice thing about the Spathoglottis is they'll acclimatize to a wide variety of different humidity conditions. Generally anything from about 50% upwards is ideal, but they can be acclimatized to lower. The one thing that they don't like is cold temperatures. Try and keep them to that minimum of about 15 degrees, but they can take quite hot temperatures. The hotter the temperature, the little bit more shade you might have to give them and the more air movement, but high temperatures are not a problem for these. If you've got winter frosts, you can protect them from the winter frosts if you're growing them outdoors by just putting a frost netting over them. You may get some cold damage to the leaves, but the new leaves that come up will all be fine because they've got nice bulbs. If during the winter they lose all their leaves, they're going to be fine. They'll just push up all this new growth from the bulbs at the base in spring and just keep going. But you want to avoid getting the frost or the ice into the bulb because then you've got a dead plant. Okay, so I'm going to be using these nice large pots. It's a fair size up from the previous one, but because they can grow so quickly, we can see on this, just on this one single bulb, it produced 3 offsets, and they can multiply up quickly, especially if you're giving them a lot of nutrition. So being heavy feeders, what I'm mostly going to be feeding them, or not feeding them, repotting them in, is a really good quality compost. This is going to provide all the loam needed for the nutrition of the Spathoglottis. And then I'm going to take the small bark, which has already started to decompose just ever so slightly. This is orchid bark that was just left for too long and not used to repot other orchids, and it's no good to pot any orchids in because of all this fine powdery bark residue. And a nice high grit river sand. So we're just going to mix that together. So my quantities here are 2 parts of the compost, 1 part river sand, and 1 part of that bark. The bark and the river sand is going to allow for that good drainage that we talked about. We can use a heavier grit than the river sand. We can go for small river stones or something, but then you start getting a lot of weight into your pot, and then it starts getting a bit difficult to move pots this size around terribly easily. There we have our media. It's going to be well drained. It's got a lot of nutrition in it at the moment, but even with that, I like to add in these slow release organic fertilizer pellets, and then I just mix that into the media. So work it all the way down through into the pot. All the roots of the Spathoglottis are still fine. There's nothing that really needs to be removed, so that we can set it in nicely. We'll set it into the middle of the pot because Spathoglottis can tend to grow all the way around the pot in 360 degrees. So we don't have to worry about it growing towards one edge. It will tend to grow in the direction the light's coming from anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. There we go, just filling it up. We're not compacting it down. We're just going to let gravity do its trick. So we planted up right on the surface so that the bulbs aren't covered by the media. It's going to allow for that air movement to come through, stop any chance of rot coming in. There we go. We're going to put this out somewhere where it's going to get some good morning sun for at least 3 or 4 hours, and we'll be happy as Larry. Spathoglottis are really excellent for beginners to start with because they're so easy and so forgiving. And when you finish potting, whether you top dress with river sand to ensure you're not holding any water at that bulb level, or you're just leaving it like this, the Spathoglottis really doesn't mind either way. It's more up to you as to how often you are watering or how much rain you have in your area. So just to recap quickly, Spathoglottis is one of the most rewarding orchids to grow. It's so forgiving with the media that you plant it in, with the temperatures that you give it, and even with the humidity that it's allowed. And with these newer hybrids, they can flower just about all year long, especially in warmer climates. In the cooler climates, you can get a dormancy period. Certain of the Spathoglottis also have a winter dormancy. So with those, you just reduce your watering and you can almost stop feeding altogether, because a lot of them might even lose all their leaves. And thank you for watching. If you have found this information helpful at all, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming videos so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.